another session of Gallant Current Affairs and News Analysis. So let us move on to today's topic. I have with me about 8 topics with me today, 3 on mains and 5 on prelims. The first issue we need to talk about India's jobless growth, not just on increasing GDP but the increasing amount of unemployment in India. We have a fab way of semiconductor. We are going to have a collaborative efforts with India, Japan, America as such for creation of semiconductor chips in India. Katachivu Island, it's a very important topic and an island in dispute between India and Sri Lanka. Then we have superconductor, 15th BRICS summit going to happen on August 22nd. We have the inheritance rights, Tsushima Strait and Moody's credit rating. So let's first look into the issue is not about India's GDP but its JDP. So I'll give you a little background. There has been a no confidence motion happening recently. So in this there has been a debate between different governments of the present party and the opposition party about who has actually had a lot of growth and GDP development and such. But the author stating here is that the GDP has been growing in India irrespective of the government that is present here. But the problem here is that we have a jobless growth. So that is what the entire article deals about, and what is the economic pathway of India right now and what all steps can India actually adopt to change this pathway. So if you are looking into the first issues of job potential, so as I have told you there has been increase in GDP growth rate in India, but the author here mentions that if there is an increase in growth rate, the number of people who has been depending upon like the schemes like MG Narega should increase, because with increasing growth and such, the job potential and formal sector job creation should also be high. But what happened here is that with the increase in the GDP and such, there has been a subsequent increase in the number of people who has been depending upon in schemes like MG Narega. If about 5.3% has been our real GDP growth, then about the demand for the work under MG Narega actually grew by 5.4%. Now this has been increasing annually. This the thing is that if the GDP is increasing, the unemployment should actually decrease. But the problem here is that this should be the ideal case. But what is presently happening here is that with the increase in GDP, the number of people who has been depending upon this schemes has been increasing, which means that majority of people are formally unemployed. So that is what has been mentioned by the author. Even if India is a fast growing economy in the world, but more people are actually clamoring for MG Narega such schemes work. Now there is a big dissonance between the GDP growth rate and the translocation in actual job creation in the economy. Now if we are looking at the formal job sector in India, the 3/4 of the jobs is handled by the upper higher class, whereas the 80% majority people in India belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC and such, they are actually working under schemes like MG Narega. So that is also another reality that has been pinpointed by the author. Now, so if you are looking in our past century, 1980s and 1990s, with just 1% increase in our GDP, about 2 lakh formal jobs were actually created. Now, if you are looking 10 years more after the LPG reforms and after 1990s, 1% of GDP growth is already creating about 1 lakh jobs, which means that the 2 lakh jobs it was creating half to 1 lakh, and presently if you are considering if this 1 lakh has also half to 50,000 to 40,000 to 25,000, which means that the formal sector job creation with the increase in GDP has been reducing, which can actually portray even though there is growth, there is unemployment, there is joblessness, which means that there is a jobless growth. There is alarming decline in the number of the jobs that are being created with every percentage growth in GDP can be highlighted by this data. Now you can actually quote these kind of data, you can draw a tabular column and write, because like if you are mentioning the real condition of how jobless growth is happening in India, these figures and facts might actually be helpful to you. Now there is a function of a poor quality of GDP growth, rapid increase in the productivity and extreme automation. So this has been actually quoted as some of the reasons for this kind of jobless growth by the author. Now what can we do? Now there is a need, like there is a jobless growth, there is a need to increase jobs so people could come out of this vicious cycle, people could come out of this poverty. Now India, we need, even though there is growth and GDP, it's not only the 1% of upper population who has the wealth is actually putting forward to this GDP economic growth. The lower 90% or 80% are actually putting just 1 or 2% of the GDP in this. The majority of the upper class, like not the upper class, the wealthy class, 1% to 2% are contributing this GDP growth rate. So what we need here is more job intensity and economic activity and economic initiatives be pushed into our economy, so that we can actually create jobs and we can actually create the real GDP, real potential GDP. Not just actually the governments are now merely chasing behind GDPs. Now we have this much GDP, we have created this much GDP. Now that is not the real growth is as stated by the author. Now recently we have actually had some initiatives on semiconductor. But the other reality is that if you need workers in semiconductor, you need skilled workers. Majority of workers in India are low skilled or semi-skilled or unskilled as well. So these kind of people cannot find work in the semiconductor manufacturing hub. We have been portraying, we have been pushing lots of crores of money into this semiconductor fab setups, manufacturing setup, design setup and such. But the problem is that they don't actually potentially create a lot of jobs. India is majorly focusing on service sector. I've told you once in my class yesterday that we are focusing a lot on service sector. We are a lot of focusing on semiconductor sector. Now these sectors are not actually creating any kind of job. These are not like labor intensive units. They are not creating a lot of jobs as the other sectors are creating. Now that is some of the problems in the article that has been mentioned. So if you are taking a company like, that is an electronic manufacturing company like Foxconn, in 10 years they have actually managed to double their profits. But what happened is that even with the doubling of their profits, the number of employment under this electronics manufacturer company, Foxconn, has not increases, which means that they are witnessing growth. But there is no growth or there is no increase in the employment opportunity that is available under this company. Now that is, you can portray an example, because there is growth but there is no job increase in this sector. Also, the traditional manufacturing sectors like the automobile, steel and cement, these used to be the drivers of job sectors. Now presently they are also not actually lost their ability to create a lot of jobs in India. So now there is the extreme reality in India. Now this data is very simple data, is better you remember it, and like this something would boost your marks, and which means that you have a very hold in how the jobless growth in economy is happening. These are all some of the examples you can actually mention along with that too. Now in recently India we have given a mines and minerals bill. So how will this affect India's future? Now you see, the whole world is actually transmitting towards electronics, and like even the mobile phones, laptop, everything needs semiconductor chips, everything needs like electronic chips as such. So there are some critical minerals, so some rare earth mineral that is associated like lithium, cobalt, graphite, which we need to actually produce these kind of electric chips as such. Now majorly we have a lot of supply chain constraints because India doesn't create majority of these minerals. We are dependent on countries like China and such for providing a lot of minerals. So it's more like India imports majority of these minerals. The problem is that, as I've told you in one of my last class, India has just explored just about 10% of the overall minerals in India. India, Africa, Australia, everybody comes from the same Gondwana landmass. So if Australia and Africa actually have the resources, then India should also have the resources. But the problem is that we just explore less than 10%, we produce less than 2%, and the budget allocation for the exploration of mines and minerals is less than 1%. That is a harsh reality in India. We have a coastline about 7,000 kilometers. With deep sea mining and such, we can actually create a lot of minerals. We can actually deep sea mine a lot of minerals, which means that India in this field has a lot of potential. Now for mining exploration, you need a lot of jobs, you need a lot of workers. Now these workers need not be skilled as such. You can actually employ low skilled workers or unskilled workers in this field, which means that if this mining sectors and minerals bill is actually put out, it's going to create a lot of employment generation in India. And we need critical elements, which means that now this is both beneficial for the workers as well as the Indian government, because the workers need work, they can get work through the mines and minerals bill. The Indian government need critical elements and rare earth mineral which has to be excavated, which has to be extracted. Now that needs labor. So because of which both is actually beneficial. Now China's domination also has to be reduced. Now Chinese is looking into like in Hind Kush Himalayan region, which comes under the Taliban region in Afghanistan, a lot like trillions worth of lithium reserves has been found there. Now, as per the Washington Post, it states that China is actually creating relations with Taliban, so they can actually exploit the Hind region for the extraction of lithium reserves. So there is a lot of competition out in this field for the critical elements, as such, because as the whole world is transitioning towards an electronic field, this kind of critical elements becomes very important. And if we are addressing the unemployment issue, this bill, the job creation that happens because of the implementation of this will be beneficial. But we have also a lot of challenges associated, because if we are like looking into minerals of extraction and such, we need the latest type of technologies for that. And also environmental concerns is a lot of issue. Now environmental concerns has the main issue that has been dragging behind the extraction of other limited resources as such. And also incidents of exploitation of labor, we have been seeing from the colonial past, exploitation of the laborers and such. So there is a fear that the laborers will be exploited again. Even if this come to the private sector hands, we will be almost focused on profitizing and maximizing their profit rather than the laborers' welfare. Also, as I have told you, like the mines and minerals has been a monopoly of the central government right now. Now with this bill, they are going to privatize it. Because of the privatization, they will come with a lot latest technology and development, and there will be a boost to the more exploitation of the minerals and natural resources. Mining can create a large number of jobs that are both local and low skill. Also, as we are transitioning to a global electrical mobility, India if need to achieve the inclusive economic development, we can actually create a lot of critical minerals with which India does not have to depend upon imports for critical minerals, and now we can actually produce these kind of minerals and we could become a global power with that. So that is what the entire article was dealing about. It is majorly about jobless growth and the creation of employment. How the two sectors, there are two sectors and two bills coming up. There is semiconductor sector bill, there is a mines and minerals sector bill. So how the employment varies between these two sectors is what the article primarily deals about. Now next we have a fab way to conduct India. So Japan-India diplomacy, we have been telling in the last slides about semiconductor. Now in this slide we will be discussing about how there is a collaboration happening between India and Japan for the development of the semiconductors manufacturing. We are focusing on 5 areas like semiconductor design, manufacturing, equipment research, establishing resilience in the semiconductor supply chain, and talent development. So these are the 5 sectors that the India-Japan is focusing. Now which means that like India is actually, there is both India and Japan are aligning its policies together. The Make in India initiative of India is actually aligned with the Society 5.0 of Japan initiative, so that they could collaborate in this semiconductor research. Now growing like so that the Chinese dominance, the supply chain issues all can be actually addressed. Now China has Japan, Taiwan, USA are primarily who has been actually manufacturing a lot of semiconductor fabs and units in India. So with the advanced tech of semiconductor from of Japan, we can actually, it would actually beneficial India, so that India has a lot of IT sectors is blooming. So we need a lot of electronic resources, which means that if you are going to actually depend upon a company like from dominance from China or such, it will be very like we have to depend a lot on imports. So to avoid that, developing their own manufacturing sectors and own semiconductor is more beneficial. So we need more resources. With the advanced technology of Japan which is available, we can actually boost the semiconductor employments, the semiconductor industries give a boost. Why is there need for such partnership? As I have told you, like there is supply chain disruptions because of Russia-Ukraine war, there has been supply chain disruption, ongoing geopolitical tensions in the Indo-Pacific region because there is like China-US trade wars, and there is export ban on export ban from USA to China and not transporting any of the critical minerals for semiconductor. So such geopolitical issue has been happening, and China, who dominates in the critical element supply like lithium and such, a majority of the countries is dominated on China, but ongoing Chinese aggression, they want to actually stop dependency on China and create their own semiconductor manufacturing units. Now like India, Japan has a collaboration in semiconductor. Similarly, India, America has a collaboration for such construction of other units like manufacturing units in semiconductor design fabs also is there. In January 2023, Japan, US and Netherlands come together. As I have told you, they put a ban on export of the critical elements that is used to create semiconductors advanced step to China. Now they also actually tighten the exports to China, so that this was one of the diplomacy policy of USA currently. Now, which means that they are stopped exporting to China, which means that India will be a potential player so that they could export such technology and advanced chips and semiconductors to India, so that India could actually grow in this field. India could, like, this also signaled that the coming of age of India's own capability in the advancement of semiconductor chips and such. Like, this is a combination because Japan has the technological power and India has the innovative and design capability. So, if we are together bonding both, it will be actually a mutual benefit for both Japan and India as well. So, that is all about the semiconductor India-Japan relations. We have a lot of relations between India and Japan happening. In all sector of field, Japan has been a very big help to India. So, semiconductor field is no less, and there is going to be a very big development coming in the semiconductor field because of this collaboration, international collaborations happening. Now, Kachativu Island. You see here, this is the Kachativu Island. Now, this is the Tamil Nadu region and this is Sri Lanka. This is Jaffna area of Sri Lanka. Now, this is close to the Park Street and very close to that of Tamil Nadu. This is the Kachativu Island that has been in use, and for centuries, if you are taking from the 14th, 17th century and such, this has been a disputed island between India and Sri Lanka. So, let us look something into the back of the history and let us look into the present issues. Now, this island has been created because of some volcanic eruptions and such. Now, in 14th century early medieval period, this island actually belonged with the Sri Lanka. It belonged to the Jaffna kingdom of Sri Lanka. A cutting chase in 17th century and such, this Kachativu island came to the hand of India. It was under the Ramnath Zamindar. He was a person based on the Ramanathapuram. So, this Kachativu Islands was under his control. Then it actually became a part of the British and it was controlled by the Madras Presidency. In 1921, both Sri Lanka and India had actually claimed this Kachativu Island. Even after independence, this Kachativu Island issue was not solved. But in 1971, there was war happening. And Sri Lanka was found to support Pakistan and USA against India. Like, they were allowing to dock the Pakistani and US ship in Sri Lanka. They also allowed the USA to actually put a radio signal tower in Sri Lanka so that they can actually observe India. So, with ongoing a lot of geopolitical tensions and all, Indira Gandhi felt that it is necessary that we have to get a good tie, we have to get on the good side with Sri Lanka. So, as a token of goodwill, they actually state that they will be giving the Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka via the India-Sri Lanka Maritime Agreement. So, there was two problems with this agreement. One of the benefits is that this island, actually not benefit, the problem is that the island completely went into the hands of Sri Lanka. There was a loose terminology happening. The terms and conditions associated with this agreement was not properly termed out, which means that there is a confusion between how much access Indian fishermen have towards the island, how much access the Sri Lankan fishermen have towards the islands, what is the control strategic point between both India and Sri Lanka. So, all this have not been actually resolved. And the other problem is that this Kachativu Island lays near to Tamil Nadu and it has a lot of historical background along with Tamil Nadu. So, when this agreement was brought out, it was not consulted with the Tamil Nadu. So, there was a lot of upheaval about it, and this agreement was actually not actually consulted with Tamil Nadu beforehand. In 1976, exclusive economic zone was rolled out. Now, you see here. See, exclusive economic zone, we know the UN clause which I have studied, with which exclusive economic zones were actually brought out. Now, you see this is the Indo-Sri Lanka maritime boundary. Now, this area belongs to India, this area belongs to India. Now, this entire light blue area you see, this is the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. Now, this is the Kachativu Island, it belongs into the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. So, there has been also an issue regarding to this because now Kachativu Island goes entirely into that of Sri Lanka. Then, there has been a lot of civil war happening in Sri Lanka, ethnic violence happening in Sri Lanka. So because of which the Sri Lankans, they actually lost control of this Kachativu island. So which means that the Indian fishermen were also accessing this Kachativu island. There was actually a lot of trouble with LTTE in Sri Lanka, and this LTTE were travelling via boats to Tamil Nadu, then the LTTE, the fishermen were travelling with boat to Kachativu island. So a lot of problem erupted there because these Sri Lankan army, military, navy, they couldn't actually discriminate or distinguish between an LTTE and a Tamil fisherman because already travelling via boats, smaller boats here and there. So because of which there has been a lot of killing happening, a lot of Indian fishermen being arrested by the Navy of Sri Lanka. So a lot of issues and ethical unrest has been happening between 1983 and 2009. In 2008, Jayalalitha of Tamil Nadu moved a Supreme Court verdict to actually nullify the agreements that has been based in 1974 and 1976, because the Tamil Nadu government, they want the control of the Kachativu island. That is also mentioned in the article today. But post 2009, post the civil war, the Sri Lanka actually focused on keeping Indian fishermen out of Kachativu island, stating strategic reasons and other strategic control. They are putting their defense and military base there and such. It is actually a very small island, just 3 km, 1.6 km, that's it. There is only one church associated there. There is no, it is a very uninhabited island. But the problem is that this fishermen traveling would actually go to this island, they take risks there, they categorize their nets there. So it's actually a place where this fishermen rest. But the problem mainly here is that there is exclusive economic zone, which means a maritime boundary. Two countries are not allowed to go above each other. This is a boundary which means Indian fishermen should not cross this and Sri Lankan fishermen should not cross this. But the problem is actually with Tamil Nadu. If you are stating is that problem is with the fishermen because they cross this border. Now there is no geographical barrier there, but the problem is that there is less fish in the case of Tamil Nadu because of all the bottom trawling and such. They actually practice exploitative fishing where they catch the fishes in colonies and such, because of which all the fish reserves there actually vanished. So now they have to travel out, get out of the boundary of India to find more fish. Now that's where the problem starts, because they cross the boundary and come here, and the Sri Lankan Navy, because of which they arrest them or kill them or damage their boats, vessels as such. So that is what the problem is here. There has been this issue has been going on for a lot of centuries. Now it is high time that we have to resolve this issue. Now in the 21st century, there is a lot of coordinations happening. India, Sri Lanka is having good relations right now compared to the previous years. So it's better that we actually solve this disputed areas of Kachativu island. Moving on, we have a next topic, superconductors. In my last class, I have told you about a LK99, which is room temperature superconductor that was found in South Korea. Now, superconductors refers to a state where a material can conduct electricity without any resistance. Now, the superconductor primarily works in very low temperature, because of which we can't actually use superconductors in our machines, our phones, or etc. Because if we can use superconductors, it will be more viable, more economic productivity, more energy efficient. These are more energy efficient materials we can use in majority of our electronic products used now. But because of the problem that they could only be used in temperature below like in low temperatures, the superconductors was never used in, could not be used in any of the present machine systems. But the South Korean research found in LK99, a superconductor that could actually work in room temperature, was a groundbreaking discovery. Now many scientists all over the world were actually talking about how this was achieved, and they were conducting their own research to come to a conclusion if this LK99 was a true room temperature superconductor. Now, if that was true, it will be a very groundbreaking discovery. But all the scientists came to a conclusion that this LK99 was not a room temperature based superconductor, because of which there is killing of all the excitement that was happening in the scientific world. If it was true, then it would have been a groundbreaking discovery. It would have created a bigger revolution, even bigger than the industrial revolution, because this material could be used in all kind of electronic materials. It could have brought a lot of efficiency. It could have actually revolutionized the entire world. But the problem is that this research was not successful. Now, 2-3 scientific reasons has been given in it. If you are a science student, you can actually go and read about it. But majority, this is something which you need to know about. Moving on to next, 15th BRICS Summit. Now the 15th BRICS Summit will be happening recently in South Africa from August 22 to 24. Our Indian president, Chinese president are all said to actually attend this BRICS meeting. Also the Russian president is actually said to attend. If we don't know if he would be attending it virtually or he will be actually going to South Africa and attending it. So there is a lot of discussion about that, because recently we know that the International Criminal Court has actually issued a warrant against Mr. Putin, stating for the war crimes he has committed. South Africa is actually a member of ICC. So if Putin actually lands in South Africa, they will be bound to arrest the Russian president. So we don't know if Russian president would be actually attending it virtually or not. So the BRICS is Brazil, China, Russia, India and South Africa. So we actually, these 5 large economies constitute together 41% of the global population, 24% of the global GDP and 16% of the global trade. In the past, BRICS has actually put out a lot of initiatives like New Development Bank, contingency reserve arrangement to increase like to pay out short term BOP crisis, balance of payment crisis as such, and also BRIC payment system, which is alternate to the SWIFT payment system. So this actually I taught you this 2 times in my class. This was actually a revision phase. Now the 14th BRICS Summit, the earlier summit which was actually conducted in China, it was conducted virtually by China. Now these are some of the initiatives. The major thing which you need to know here is the adopting Beijing Declaration. This is mainly humanitarian help to Ukraine and to solve all the Russia-Ukraine war that is happening right now. And they also discussed on other issues like terrorism, like safe havens for corruption, consumer protection in e-commerce field, also to combating drug trafficking, humanitarian help to Ukraine, terrorism in the case of Afghanistan. So this is something which they have already discussed. This is not important for you to remember. What is important is the 15th BRICS Summit that is going to happen and the outcome. This is some of the important outcomes they discussed. The important outcomes is the Beijing Declaration. I just kept it for your formal understanding. This present BRICS Summit is going to happen between 22nd August to 24th August. So after 24th August, we will get a detailed outcome of what happened in the 15th BRICS Summit. Inheritance rights under the Hindu Marriage Act. So here I'll be talking about a case. So if a child is born to a couple who has not been formally married under the Hindu Marriage Act, though this article actually talks about would that child get any inheritance of the parents. So before coming to this, we need to look at a major case called the Revanasindappa versus Mallikarjun case, which was in 2011. In this case, the Supreme Court stated that the child born is innocent. So which means that the child has equal right to the parents' property as of any other child born in a valid marriage. This child which is born to a couple which has not been properly married or their marriage is void, even the child who is an innocent will get the same rights to the property. Now this property, the child can only get the property of the parents, but not on the properties of any other extended relations. The child can only get the property of the parents. That is what this case has been dealing about. Now Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Succession Act, this has been going on. This is a major small amendment happening into the act. So that is what I have been stating. If a marriage is invalid or void, so a child born to such parents under this kind of marriage, like that is what is discussed here. So this provision has been included by amending Hindu Marriage Act section 16(3). Now Toshima Strait. So if you are seeing here, this is the Toshima Strait. This is actually prominently between South Korea and Japan. It actually connects the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea. This is East China Sea and this is Sea of Japan. So this is Toshima Strait. It is between South Korea and Japan. It connects the East China Sea and Sea of Japan. Now it has been, the strait is important. It is a strategic location between both these countries and there is a lot of transport happening. It is actually a lot of trade, maritime trade and military activities happening in this way. Now the issue is happening here that this is like the Russians have been going out through the strait connecting the Sea of Japan via the Tsushima Strait, via the East China Sea. Now these are all exclusive economic zones, or these are the interior territories of both these countries. So the Russian planes traveling here and there has been creating a lot of tensions and struggles for this. Now even before, like Russia and Japan has a history of such maritime boundary disputes. If you are looking into Kuril Islands, this is the chain Kuril Island. Now this is the Hokkaido province of Japan, and this is the Kamchatka Peninsula of Russia. Now this Red Sea here, that is the disputed maritime islands between, that is the Kuril Islands, disputed between Russia and Japan. This comes into the north of Japan, and there is a lot of treaties like the Treaty of Shimoda, Treaty of St. Petersburg, then World War II treaties, Treaty of San Francisco. A lot of treaties has been created because of this. Now majority of this portion comes under Japan's, but is dominated by the Russian military. It may have been Russian, it is dominated by the Japan military. So as such has been going on for a lot of time. So this Kuril Island is actually stretched from the Japanese side of Hokkaido to the southern tip of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. This is actually situated in the Sea of Okhotsk, okay, from the North Pacific Ocean. So that is what this Kuril Islands issue is about. This is the disputed island territories known as the Northern Territories by Japan. Now this is an actually additive of what I was explaining earlier. This you might actually study in our international relations as such in World War II and all. So just remember this topic, I am just giving you a glimpse of it. This chain, this is actually a chain of islands. Like there are a lot of volcanic hotspots. There are 35 spring sport volcanoes and 100 volcanoes, and 35 are still active. 35 active volcanoes in this region, and also so many hot springs. So that is all about Kuril Islands. Now coming to our last topic we have for today, Moody's credit rating. Now the credit rating is actually a qualified assessment of the credit worthiness of a borrower. So it means that I am a borrower, I borrow money from you, but a person is telling you that don't give her money. She might not pay back your principal, she might not pay back your interest, she might not even pay back your money at all. So would you actually give money to me? So that is what a credit rating is. They are giving me a credit rating that if you give me money, I will actually pay you back, or I won't pay you back. The chances that I pay you back is low or high. So that is what the credit rating is all about. It can give the investors an insight. So if you are investing money to me, if you are giving money to me, it will give you an insight that would I pay you back, would I not pay you back. So these dilemmas will be actually solved, and the level of risk associated with it will also be addressed. Now even with this credit rating, it could actually be a boost to getting bonds, or even attracting a lot of FDI to India or some other country as well. Now this credit rating is given by some other agencies known as the rating agency. It's a company actually which assesses the companies and other organization about their credit worthiness. Like there are totally 3 main companies like the S&P, the Standard & Poor's, then the Moody's Investor Service, and then we have the Fitch Service. Now these are the 3 main global services. They actually credit rate more than 95% of the global credit rating businesses. In India we have 6 others like CRISIL, ICRA, CaN, Fitch India, Brickwork, etc. These are the 6 credit rating based in India. Now in 2020 this BRICS rating Moody has actually, now these are all this credit rating. So you see here, this is the line. If you go above this, it will be more like you are more desirable, you can you have high credit rating and you can actually invest in these. If you go below this, it's very risky. It's very risky. It will give an idea is don't invest here, because it's probably you might not even get your interest or principal back. So it will give, if you come below this, it's a negative rating for your country. Now India stands at this. We have just got above the junk remark, but still we are like the lowest investment grade, but we still didn't go below this. So in 2023 we have been actually taken by the Moody from a negative rating to a more stable rating. That has happened in that has been actually credited by the Moody's. That is actually the outlook like stable. Moody's Baa3, that is we given here, which is more stable, but still the lowest investment, but we can say it's more stable. Now recently what has happened is that, you see this article, Moody's Investor Society has reaffirmed that India will be stable, India will be kept at Baa3. We are not going to remove or add you or take you anywhere. You will be at the lowest investment level, Baa333. Baa3. But the problem that they address is that India with the G20 collaboration and all, Modi predicted that India will experience economic growth in the next 2 years, which can actually outpace the other G20 economies. But the problem is political instability happening in India with cases like Manipur, Haryana issue and all. They are portraying that there is a weak and rising political tensions happening in India, because of which they are actually flags the Manipur issue as an example. But still India is at Baa3, that is one of the lowest investment grades. So that is all for today. This has been a lengthy session for you, so I am not keeping any practice questions as such. We have dealt with about 8 articles. You can get the PDF from our Telegram channel, Gallant IAS. Thank you and have a nice day. We will see you again tomorrow.